name's Jeanne Stallman. I've been involved with OLLI since the beginning. I was working in continuing ed when the then head of continuing education, Kevin Talbert, brought home a book from a conference. The book was called Students of the Third Age. I wish I had a copy with me right now. He had heard a talk at the conference by the author of that book, Rich Fisher. And this book was about a new model of learning, specifically geared to older adults, retirees, in which instead of the program being run by an administrator like me or him, it was run by the members. It was a way of capturing all the expertise, the know-how of the folks who were retired and putting them to work with that energy and that smart and that excitement, and letting them own the program instead of us trying to take ownership of it. So Kevin brought back this book. He shared it around. We all agreed that that model might be a good fit for our community. And I looked at our mailing list, identified a group of retirees that I was familiar with through our Elder Hostel and Senior Ventures programs. Together, a group of us issued an invitation to them to I think it was a Monday afternoon session at the Student Union, in which we looked at this idea together. Kevin gave a short presentation using a slide projector, the modern technology at the time. And when he finished the last slide, he turned on the lights and he said, "What do you think?" The audience of, I think it was 15 people, were enthusiastic, and he said, "Okay, if you think this is a good idea, then y'all need to drive the bus on that." And so the group stayed while us administrators left, and they started talking about it. They made plans, and that fall was the very first session of OLLI. The idea of a learning in retirement was new to us with that book. However, the university at that point had a strong older adult education program already. Our first Elder Hostel program was in summer of 1980, and it was a smashing success. Everyone enjoyed themselves. Wayne Schumacher had run the program. He was director of housing at that time. And so the next summer, he planned 3 of them. We had 3 weeks of Elder Hostel that summer, 1981. That fall, Wayne's boss, Phil Campbell, pulled him aside and said, "We're having a little bit of a problem. The economy is not in great shapes. We have fewer students than we expected. We need to occupy those residence halls more. And that Elder Hostel program you did was pretty good. Let's do some more of that." So Wayne penciled out 40 weeks of Elder Hostel the following year. And in the process, Southern Oregon University became the first college to go year-round with Elder Hostel programming. And it became very quickly an important part of this campus identity. We grew very used to having older adults on our campus as belonging here. In 1983, we started a companion program called Senior Ventures, similar, a residential program for older adults. So by the time the idea of a learning and retirement group came along in 1993, we were very comfortable with the idea that older adults belong on this campus. Elder Hostel was in its own right revolutionary at the time. When it was first started in 1975, the idea that older adults, people who were retired, would actually want to come back onto a college campus was a crazy idea. The thought was that when people retire, they want to go and they want to play golf and spend time with the grandkids. But instead, Elder Hostel theorized that people want to learn and grow. And so it took off like a shot when it was founded in 1975. And then in 1980, we hosted our first program here. Took off like a shot for us as well. So the Elder Hostel program, when it came to Southern Oregon, was run by the housing office. So there was an administrator for the program, Wayne Schumacher, who was the director of housing, sort of took this under his wing, and he became our first director of Elder Hostel, and then Senior Ventures when we introduced that. because the program grew so rapidly, he started adding staff. And it was a little unusual for a college campus to have that program based in housing. That's just happened to be where it took off. It had a strong relationship with continuing ed, so both offices here on this campus have been deeply involved in our older adult programs. But yes, those programs were run by administrators. Mm-hmm. When I joined the college, I joined in 1990. And at that point, we had a very strong Elder Hostel and Senior Ventures program, which sometimes included folks who were local. Really, this was a program for folks who were from out of the area coming and visiting and staying on campus when they were visiting the Ashland environment. But occasionally we had local folks who wanted to participate in that. And so we'd offer them a special option. You didn't have to come and stay in the dorms. You could stay at home and just have lunches and the classes with the group. And so in that way, our mailing list, our list of alumni, if you will, in Elder Hostel and Senior Ventures included some local folks. So when this idea of a learning and retirement group came up, I looked through our mailing list, identified some folks, about a dozen folks who were on that list who seemed like real leaders that might be interested in driving this idea forward. We added a few other folks that weren't on the list, but we knew as retirees from the university, and so invited this small group to a meeting at the Student Union to talk about this new crazy idea. The Campbell Center housed the maintenance office for housing, and it was nothing like it is now. Two long, low buildings that were not in the best of shape, and they had a kind of weedy, grassy strip running through the middle of them and some lumpy asphalt. Not the most attractive of places. I think it was, well, it was in 1993 when this learning and retirement group started. They needed a classroom. So we looked around and said, well, housing maintenance really could be in the one building, and we could use the other one as classrooms. So there was some little bit of work done to get them ready and use them as classrooms, but really it was pretty rough early on. And I think it was in about 1998 that we converted the other building that housing maintenance had occupied into classrooms for Elder Hostel. So for a while we had both Elder Hostel and OLLI, SOLIR, in the same complex here. Slowly over time, SOLIR, now OLLI, really revved the place up. The archways were added at one point. They were not original to this, and that kind of set the buildings off as their own little campus. SOLIR turning into OLLI is a great story about what makes OLLI OLLI. Because in 2006, I think it was, we first heard, administrators first heard about this Bernard Osher Foundation and how they were trying to seed these learning and retirement groups to become more deeply embedded into their college campuses. At that point, I'm just going to interrupt myself for a second. It was in 2000 when we pooled Elder Hostel Senior Ventures and SOLIR together that I then became director of the senior programs for the university. So as director of senior programs then, that's the point where I returned to really being a part of SOLIR and doing things like attending the monthly council meetings and being the point of contact for that program within the university. So in 2006, when we started to become aware of this Bernard Osher Foundation, I introduced the idea to the council at a meeting, and at that point in time, that council didn't see the fit for our group. The thought was, our group's very successful in doing what they're doing. You know, we don't need to chase after funding like that. The following year's council was different. every council every year is different depending on who's elected to it. And the folks that year said, heck yeah, we'd really be interested in becoming part of this Osher network. And wrote a letter to the Osher Foundation expressing interest. They kindly let us know that that's not how it works. You don't tell us that you're interested, we let you know if we're interested in an application from you. 6 months later, they wrote to us and said, we'd be interested in an application from Southern Oregon University. And so we got that underway. When I say we, I want to be clear that I'm talking about council. I very much feel a part of council, but again, what makes OLLI special is that it's a member-run program. So council decided to submit an application to the Osher Foundation, and we're rewarded very warmly with recognition and being brought into that program. How that worked was the first year we got a $50,000 grant. We got a second $50,000 grant the second year and an invitation to apply for endowment. They awarded us the endowment. That check arrived for $1 million in the mail on March 29th, 2009, which happens to be about the bottom of the stock market. So we deposited that check, and the stock market turned around. We quickly got some very nice gains on it, and we were able to use that money very nicely. Part of the problem that we had going at that point was SOLIR had grown so much that it was absolutely straining the infrastructure, the little bit of staff time that we had. There was a 0.4 coordinator position to support this growing organization, and that was it.
40%?
40% time, yes. That's all the staff support that this group had. And at that point, in about 2006, I think our enrollment was around 600, 680, something like that. And the problem was we just couldn't handle growth. The Osher endowment allowed us to put a little more infrastructure behind it, both in terms of the classroom and the staff, the support for the program. It's not that we wanted the endowment so that we could grow the numbers of the program. What we wanted to do was to serve the community. Before the Osher endowment, we kind of didn't want to tell anybody about this program because we couldn't handle the growth. We just didn't have the infrastructure to handle that growth. The Osher endowment allowing us to have some infrastructure meant that we could sort of safely talk about it and talk about it with pride and invite in those folks that were really wanting a program like this. So my role with the council is just to be the guardrails, really. I represent the framework of the university for council. So when a question comes up about what's our history, what things could we do, what are we prescribed from doing, I just provide those sort of outer limits. And given that I've sat in on council meetings for many, many years, I might occasionally raise a question or throw out an idea, but I'm really clear that it's not my role to set direction. That's council's role. So I might have a pet project or something I'd really, and actually I do have a list of them, that I'd love to see OLLI take on. Until I'm an OLLI member, I'll keep my mouth closed on those things. It's my job just to provide the parameters. OLLI was growing. That first year when we conceived of this idea, the thought was it'd be great if we had 75 people. And that first year, the numbers, I think, were 104. So right out of the gate, there was greater demand than anticipated for this. At some point in that first half dozen years, the council had a vote about capping the membership. The thought was that if you grow too big, you lose that sense of closeness, the sense of camaraderie, and the sense of ownership of this is our program. And it becomes just a factory, you know, just so many people coming and going. no one wanted to lose that identity of this being a warm, social environment. And so at one council meeting in 1 month, there was a vote to cap the membership. The very next month, the council reversed that vote. So that's the sort of dust up that happened there. It was a difficult decision, difficult problem for the council to grapple with. It'd be awfully hard to say one thing. I'm proud of the physical environment outside the classroom door because it expresses in a physical way what I feel is the emotional reality of OLLI. It is a beautiful environment that has been built by the members. I remember what was here before. The weedy grass, the lumpy asphalt, two unattractive buildings that were sort of abandoned on the edge of campus. And the OLLI Council, the OLLI committees, as in this case specifically Landscape Committee, have made something really beautiful here. And you feel it when you come through the archways, so it's marked. This is our world. I feel super proud of the decisions OLLI has made financially to handle its resources carefully. The chair I'm sitting in right now is a serious upgrade from those first few years when we had those super cheap plastic backyard chairs that everybody has, you know, that stack, you know. That was the OLLI chair because council was going to use their resources carefully. Again, I talked about a strained infrastructure. OLLI and SOLIR councils would much rather spend that money on something like coffee and tea so that folks can socialize together instead of fancy chairs. Originally, the stationery that OLLI used was blank paper and an ink pad. And they did return addresses on the envelopes that way. They didn't indulge in something fancy like actual printed stationery. Every decision along the way has been made carefully to use the resources that were available to OLLI very wisely. I think you see that in the classroom remodels that are going on right now. And to build a sense of community. Lots of discussion about how much staff is the right amount of staff. You want to have the staff that supports the volunteers in doing their work. So there's things that maybe a member might wish, you know, it'd be really nice if we had this or that. Then the membership has to decide to do that because we're not eager to hire on more staff to do the work. This is a member-driven program. Members will decide what they value, what should get done, and members will do it. Every year we have to remind ourselves how OLLI relates to campus. And because it is member-run and we want to foster that sense, it can also lead somehow to a sense of OLLI as somehow separate or different from campus. OLLI is absolutely different from every other campus-run program because this is run by the members. You don't find in student housing, the students don't run that. It's run by administrators, for example. So OLLI is special in that way, but it's very much a part of campus. It's not separate from campus, and so we always have to remind members of that. When you pay for your OLLI membership, you're writing that check to SOU. It's part of this university, not in any way a separate program or a separate tax entity or anything like that. I will say perhaps the most difficult moment came up one council meeting many years ago when council was sort of saying, well, you know, I don't know if we'd like whatever it was at the moment. This thing that the university is doing, or the way that there's some limits on how we can spend funds or anything like that. Some particular thing at the moment. And maybe we should just, maybe we should be separate from the university. I had to take a deep breath and say, this council, these 12 people, can choose to get up and leave and go start your own learning and retirement somewhere else. But I have to tell you that this program at the university will go on because it is important to this university. It belongs on our campus. We have many decades of older adults being part of our campus community. We want them to be part of our campus community. And there will be a learning and retirement program at this campus. And that was sort of a turning moment. And ever since then, we've never had that dialogue again. I think we've just gotten more and more comfortable and settled into the fact that we like OLLI being a part of this university. We belong here. We are valued on this campus. We're wanted at things like music performances and plays and lectures and just strolling across campus, being in the bookstore, any of that stuff. We're wanted here, and we feel really good about that. The Higher Education Center in Medford opened in 2008. We had a Medford campus prior to that, but it was small, an old donated repurposed building, something like the Campbell Center was at once. The Higher Ed Center gave us a chance to have a real strong and visible and beautiful presence in Medford together with our community college partners. And to say that higher education belongs in downtown Medford. When that building opened in 2008, we invited OLLI in. We have some beautiful classrooms there, and during the daytime, we don't use them all that well. Our use in Medford is really geared around the evening and weekend student. And so it was a perfect marriage. Here's this beautiful building we just built, and we're using it evenings and weekends. OLLI, would you like to use it some during the daytime? And so we started with one classroom. We now have 2 classrooms and an office in the building there. And again, like our campus here, it just has become part of the identity of the building. It's not all about just young people in that building, it's the whole community. Well, one of the most valuable things about OLLI is that it is a reflection of you. It will be what you make it. And so bring your curiosity, bring what you know that you can contribute to this group of people. Bring your enthusiasm and energy, bring the things that you want to know about, that you want, the pleasure you want in other people's company. Come in and make it a reflection of yourself. Because I know from my own personal experiences within my family and within myself that there comes a point when your kids leave home, when your career is at a certain point, and you start to think, what do I do now? What is this other phase of life? I am plenty young, I have time and I've got energy, and I've got a lot of life. And so what do I do? And OLLI really answers that question. It says, come and make that life for yourself here.